Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
Guten Tag, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mind Cake.
Mind Cake.
With him,
Lee Crompton. And him,
Paul Bisson.
Yeah, nice one. You tried to put me off with your old Guten Tag there, and I'm like, I was ready. I knew you were gonna throw a curveball in there.
Born ready. How we
born
doing?
Ready. Yes, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Not too bad at all.
You look like you're in a travel lodge. And I'm going to guess this just by I can see the corner of the curtains and pelmet, and that looks like a travel lodge curtain and pelmet.
You are almost right.
Oh,
Premier Inn. It's a.
Is it?
I nearly swore there. It's a Premier Inn.
Oh wow. At least it's not your house. That's okay. Yes, Premier Inn's slightly better, isn't it? I was at the Hub. Hub was very nice.
Now, I've been in a Premier Inn Hub, and it is cool. You've got the little like the headboard of the bed is all like futuristic and stuff.
Yeah, we've got all the dimmer switches. Yeah.
Which one were you in?
Marylebone Street, mate.
Oh, I was in the Camden, mate.
Were you?
Yeah.
What I did notice is there's not a bin.
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, no, I don't have a bin in my room.
Oh, yeah.
Which for a messy so-and-so is not ideal. But at least the kids weren't there. Otherwise, it would have been a riot.
Wait, I don't think there would have been space in a hub.
No, that's true. Yes. So I was down in London for the London Screenwriters Festival.
Woo.
Thank you. Where I did a lot of pitching. It was like there was 3 hours of pitching on the Friday morning it's like speed dating. They do it. That's the way they do it down there. So you get like 5 minutes, you queue up to whoever you want to see, you get 5 minutes to pitch your ideas, and then at the end they tell you whether they're interested or not interested or whatever. So I got generated quite a lot of interest, one of which you'll be pleased to know was Game of Cones.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Oh, wow. Who did you pitch Game of Cones to?
I'm not at liberty to say. I'll tell you off air.
Oh, okay.
But they were particularly interested in Scottish projects. And I'm going, I have got lots of them. I had some very interesting conversations with a lot of interesting people, and it was very worthwhile.
Awesome. Well, I am currently in Weston-super-Mare.
Woohoo! On your world tour of England.
Yes. On tour, currently doing Shark in the Park. So I've been in Slough and Basingstoke thus far, and then we came up to Weston, and we've had a couple of days off, which has been lovely. So yesterday we took a day trip to Glastonbury, which was amazing. So we drove over and we took a walk up Glastonbury Tor to St Michael's Tower in a gale force wind. So it was really refreshing being at the top of the hill and just being blasted with this wind. Really cleared the cobwebs, as they say. And then we went back down the Tor and to one of the springs. So it's called the White Springs, and that actually flows out from underneath the Tor. And you go into this little cave, and there's 2 pools, and you can go in the pools.
And did you go in the pools?
No, well.
Oh, God. So he had the ideal opportunity, and I could see your face. His eyes lit up, ladies and gentlemen. And I thought he's going to tell me he went in the pool and he did it. Up to your ankles?
Up to my knees.
That's not because that doesn't count.
Well, no, because and it's partly because we only had one little towel between the 3 of us, like myself and my 2 colleagues. But also, I didn't feel 100% comfortable getting naked in front of all these random people.
Nah, you don't need to worry about that.
Now, some people are quite happy with that. So we walked in, and I looked, sort of and it's a really dark room. There's candles everywhere, sort of beautifully atmospheric and spiritual. It's lovely. And there was a lady in a swimming costume, like a sort of a higher pool. And I was like, I didn't realize that you could actually go into it. And then a little naked man walked down the corner. And I
Wow.
was like, oh, so, and then other people were just coming in, stripping off and just like having a spiritual cleanse, and just submerging themselves into the pool. And some people were kind of singing and chanting. It was wonderful. But so we went in up to our knees into the sort of lower pool, and it was amazing. I mean, I wish I could have
Stripped off.
submerged myself completely. Yeah,
Mm.
and that was a really nice moment. And then we went to the Chalice Hill Gardens, and that was a really peaceful, really spiritual place as well. So I had a very lovely day of self-care in Glastonbury yesterday.
That's fantastic. And I don't want to bring the mood down, but as is my wont, I will try my best on a mental health podcast just to bring everyone down. But I think from what you're discussing, I don't know, I've never, right. Firstly, I lived not far from Glastonbury originally, and I've never been to Glastonbury. So that's something I need to tick off my bucket list.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't doubt that it was spiritual. However, I think there are a lot of perverts out there who just want to get naked under the veil of well-being. So, for example, not far from your neck of the woods, Berwick-upon-Tweed, and there was a world record attempt for the most skinny dippers ever in one place. And I thought that's a bit of a lot before we have kids. So me and Gemma did it. We went
Okay.
along, raised money for cancer research, and we did it thinking it was going to be. Well, this comes on to the Three Peaks Challenge. So when I did the Three Peaks Challenge, for charity beat, I thought it was going to be a lot of people who weren't very fit putting their best foot forward for charity.
Mhm.
It's not. It's hill walkers, right? It's hill walkers who are experienced at doing this. Majority. There are some people who are doing it, who maybe haven't had that experience, but the vast majority of people are, like you said, with these cycle, we're going to cycle from Glasgow to Edinburgh for charity. Most of the people who do it are cyclists. And all I'm saying is most of the people who went to the skinny dip were just, I'm not going to say perverts, but just naturists who wanted to see other people naked. They were there. There was me and Gemma kind of huddling under a towel, waiting till the last moment to sort of unveil ourselves before we went like running full pelt into the water. And there's people just strutting about, arms on their hips, just letting it all hang out, and just thinking, well, you're not a normal member of the public who's just turned up and thought, you know what, for charity, I'm gonna go and do a skinny dip and trying to get into the Guinness Book of Records. This is kind of my thing. Under the thin veil of spirituality, maybe some of the people that are in the cave were just, I don't know. I don't know what word I'm allowed to use. There's nothing wrong with getting naked. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't know what I'm saying. Help me out here, Paul. You're just staying silent, and I need you to dig me out of this hole.
I know what you're saying. Like some people could take advantage of the good-natured, what's the like the. But I know what you mean. Like some people could take advantage of that under that veil of spirituality just to kind of get a little look at some naked people.
The
But
exhibitionists.
yeah, but I didn't get that vibe. I got certainly when I was there, and I was only in there for maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe 20
Now,
minutes.
to be fair, you probably scared most of the people off with your knees. They've
I
taken one look of your bare knees and gone, I think it's time for us to go now.
I have amazing knees.
Wow.
How dare you?
I'll have to ask Gail next time I see her to rate your knees. Talking of rating your, well, not your knees, but what I'm hoping to do, if not this episode, but next episode, is my children came to see you at Shark in the park, and what I'm going to do, they've very much enjoyed themselves. Well, according to my wife, the children very much enjoyed themselves. However, I'm going to ask them if they will do a review. And now I'm not going to lead the witness. I'm just going to ask them what they thought of the show and what they thought of you, and see what they say. And I will broadcast it, good or bad, on probably the next episode.
Great. Okay, I look forward to being judged by your children.
Yeah, well, that is your audience, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the most children are the most honest audience you will ever have. So
I
yeah.
know, that's why I'm looking forward to it. And My wife said you had a lovely singing voice.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, and she also said you did an Elvis impersonation, but you kept that very quiet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a surprise. You have to come and see the show to.
All right, you're not going to give us a couple of bars now.
Absolutely not. No, I'm on a day off, mate.
Right.
So, shall we?
Is that
shall we-
sorry? Going back, no. Before we crack on from the Elvis impersonation, what I want to know, because I did look online to see whether I
Yeah.
could find one of your bios somewhere where it
Hmm.
says, "Hello, I'm Paul. I act between the ages of 25 and 65, and I'm 6'5", and I do the Welsh accent and the Newcastle accent. Oh, and by the way, I also do a really cracking Elvis impersonation. Is that on
No.
Is Elvis on
It-
your bio?
It is not on
Oh.
my CV, on my
Okay.
skill set. No, it's not.
Did you sing an Elvis song then, or did you just
No,
talk
no,
in an Elvis
it's
style?
it's an original song for the show, but done in the style of Elvis, with a sparkly jacket.
Oh man, that's worth the entrance fee alone, isn't it?
Well, you still have the opportunity to come and see it. We are on tour until the 14th of April.
I am going to come down to Western-super-Mare right now because I'm all shook up.
Such a dick.
Right. Anyway, your interview.
Yeah, so a few days ago, I interviewed the lovely Nicola Wilson, who is a solution-focused hypnotherapist and does a lot of work with people who have depression and anxiety, amongst other things.
Yes.
And it was a really eye-opening and interesting chat.
Well, shall we, as I always say, get into it?
Let's do it.
So we are privileged to be joined this evening by Nicola Wilson. Hi, Nicola.
Hi, Paul.
How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Excellent. So just for clarification, Nicola and I went to school together many years ago. In fact, I think we were in the same higher drama class
We were.
when I was in 6th year and you were in 5th year. So we've known each other for quite a long time. And you're married to a very good friend of mine, Andrew, as well.
Yes.
So well done for putting up with him. Hi, Andrew, if you're listening. Nicola, why don't you start us off? Tell us, well, why you are here on Mindcake today. What do you do?
I am a solution-focused hypnotherapist.
Ooh, that sounds fancy. Could you tell us a bit about your background and kind of how you ended up being a solution-focused hypnotherapist and how you got into that?
Sure, yeah. Well, my job previously, I was a speech and language therapist in the NHS for about 14 years. So I've had a therapy background for a long time. And when I had my kids, I decided that I wanted a bit of a change of career. I wanted to do something that had a bit more flexibility and that I could really, maybe possibly work from home. And I did hypnobirthing with my first pregnancy, and that's what really sparked my interest in hypnosis and in hypnotherapy. It was a fantastic course that I did, and I remember doing the relaxation, the hypnosis part. It was the most relaxed I ever remembered being, I think, in my life. And I thought, and it really worked for me. And I just thought, there's something in this. So just got really fascinated by it. I kind of had a feeling that I would want to go on to be a hypnotherapist from doing the course. And that was about 13 years ago now. And I started off my sort of journey of changing my career as a hypnobirthing teacher, which I have been for the past 8 years or so now. And a couple of years ago, I decided to do my training as a solution-focused hypnotherapist.
Fab. And is hypnobirthing something that you've had for all of your pregnancies as well, yeah?
Yes.
I mean, that must just be an amazing thing to bring a little person into the world feeling the most relaxed that you could possibly feel. Was that quite an eye-opening thing? Is that what you expected from that process?
Not really. I mean, I think it was recommended to me by a colleague at the time, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting because, we hear so many negative birth stories, and the my colleague that recommended hypnobirthing had a lovely home birth and no complications. And I thought, well, I'm definitely going to take her advice. And it was the actual experience of the hypnosis in the classes where you just slipped into this lovely state of relaxation. And that for me, from working in the NHS, which I'm sure a lot of listeners will be, familiar with the stress that is involved in working in the NHS and, the pressures that people are under. And I think that I had been myself under quite a lot of stress and pressure for quite a few years, to be honest. Doing a course like that was super relaxing, just the contrast for me was really apparent. Yeah.
And I guess perhaps that's what prompted you for the career change as well, trying to get out of a stressful environment and into a relaxed environment. And like you say, working from home and just taking a bit of control back, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think so. And I think that's something that hypnotherapy in general helps people to do, reduce that stress and get a bit more clarity and move forward in life, which I think it's helped me, over the years as well.
That's brilliant, because like you totally bought into it yourself, as someone on the other side of it, and now you are doing it as a career, which is a really nice segue. So, solution-focused hypnotherapy, can you tell us what that actually is?
Yeah, so it's a type of hypnotherapy that involves a combination of solution-focused talking therapy, which I'll explain a little bit more about, and an understanding of how the brain works. So it's a brain-based therapy, and also hypnosis or trance. Hypnosis and trance are the same thing. And the founder is a lovely gentleman called David Newton, who developed solution-focused hypnotherapy over a number of years and started up a hypnotherapy school in 2002. And it's influenced by a few different sort of therapeutic techniques, approaches, neuro-linguistic programming, which you might have heard of, cognitive behavioural therapy, humanistic therapy, and the work of Milton Erickson, who is a famous hypnotherapist who had an approach to the subconscious mind that solution-focused hypnotherapy sort of uses.
Wow, that sounds so highbrow. Okay, so we'll delve into what all that stuff is going forward. What kind of people do you work with then? Like what sort of conditions do people come to you to tackle?
Mainly anxiety and depression. That's my kind of what you would call bread and butter. I do work from the earliest age I work with is 10 years old. I work with teenagers.
Wow.
Right the way up. Yeah, mainly anxiety and depression. And within that, I work with people who have, maybe postnatal depression, fertility issues, and it can be very helpful for people going through fertility issues, insomnia, sleep issues. I see people for weight loss, for smoking cessation, a whole range. I've not kind of narrowed down my niche yet. I'm working with a range of clients at the moment. Yeah.
I mean, that must just make your day-to-day life quite exciting, because every single, I know this is going to sound obvious, but every single case is different, but there's such a wide range of things and issues that you're kind of helping these people work through. I mean, that must just be quite exciting, because every day is going to be so different.
Yeah, and I have, I have a special interest in neurodiversity as well. So a lot of the teenagers that I work with are autistic or neurodiverse too. So that's an area of interest of mine as well.
So you say like your bread and butter is anxiety and depression. Have you noticed, because can you remind me how long you've been doing this for now?
I graduated in July 2002, so almost 2 years.
Right, okay. Now, have you noticed an increase in people who are coming to you about anxiety and depression over the last 2 years, or has it always been quite a steady kind of thing?
I think that it has been fairly steady for me since graduating. Probably if you ask somebody that had been qualified for 10, 15 years, maybe they would have seen that increase. But no, I'm busy, put it that way. I've been busy since I qualified, and the clients are still coming through the doors.
So I was going to ask you what a typical day is like, but I guess we've kind of just covered that you don't really have a typical day because every case is so unique and so different. Without giving any trade secrets away, what sort of techniques or approaches do you typically use with a client?
It's completely different to conventional talking therapies where you would have a focus on the problem and maybe stresses and events that have happened in the past and maybe picking those apart. We do things in a very different way. So like I said, it's a brain-based therapy. So we look at how the brain works with clients. So when I see people for an initial consultation, I will do an explanation of the neuroscience really of anxiety and depression. And we don't go into all the structures of the brain and things in great detail. We focus on sort of key features of the brain. When we do this brain explanation, we don't go into the structures of the brain in any great detail. We look at specific bits of the brain, mainly the prefrontal cortex, which is a bit that you have at the front of the brain, which is sometimes called the intellectual mind. So that is the bit of the brain that is very good at problem solving. It's very logical, rational. It will always see things from the sort of positive point of view. It's very good at weighing up any situation and coming up with a good answer. And that's a bit of the brain that we often call that's where the real you is. That's where the best version of you is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have another bit of the brain called the primitive brain, which hasn't changed since caveman days. It's been the same since early humans. It's responsible for our fight, flight, freeze response. And we explain that this part of the brain is where that stress, anxiety, and depression kind of comes from. So within that primitive brain, we've got a structure called the amygdala, and that is responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze response in response to any actual danger or perceived danger as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another structure called the hippocampus that is responsible for our behavioral responses and patterns to things that happen to us in our lives. It's like a kind of filing cabinet or a library of all of our responses and things that the way that we've responded to events in our lives. And then the hypothalamus as well, which controls our chemical responses in our body and our mind. So when your stress levels start to build up, that can be over a really long period of time. That can be over that's a gradual process that can happen without us sometimes being aware. Sometimes stress will just all catch up with you and hit you like a ton of bricks. And that primitive brain, we call that the sort of our opt-out clauses that the primitive brain will revert to under stress are anxiety and depression. Anger comes into that as well, but sometimes anger can be healthy too. And, we need to vent, we need to get angry at things. But generally, when our stress levels start to rise, the primitive brain will opt out with either anxiety or low mood and depression. So it's always a response to what's happened to us in our lives. And what we do in solution-focused hypnotherapy is we tap into that other part of the brain, that prefrontal cortex, which is that bit that will come up with the solution, the right answers. It will weigh things up and be sort of more positive and optimistic. And we want to be leading with that bit of the brain rather than with the primitive brain.
That is so interesting. Presumably people can have trauma or whatever it is that's happened a long time, years ago perhaps, or in childhood, as an adult, something's happened to them in childhood. They've kind of locked away in the primitive part of their brain, and it's trying to unlock that and focusing on it with the prefrontal cortex part of your brain, which is a more kind of rational and, well, I guess solution-focused kind of part of the brain then, sort of.
It's, yes.
And that would then lead you to a way of how to make peace with that trauma or to move on from that trauma or how to cope with that trauma and reduce the stress and the anxiety.
Yeah, so it goes even deeper than that. So when we do the trance part, the hypnosis part with people, what we're doing is we're getting people into a lovely state of relaxation, relaxing your body, relaxing your mind. Your brain waves start to slow down. So when we're going about our daily lives and we're busy and we're thinking and problem solving, your brain waves are very fast. You know, that electrical activity is very fast. And when you go into hypnosis, your brain waves become much slower and more relaxed. And that's when we've got access to the subconscious state of mind. And that really means that we've got access to the whole brain. But what's happening when you are in that nice dreamy state is something very special. And it replicates a natural occurrence in the brain that happens during your night's sleep. So when you go to sleep at night, your brain will go into REM sleep, rapid eye movement, for a certain amount of your night's sleep. And that is when you process stress and process emotions and events that have happened previously in your life. And what happens in the brain is that the pathways around the primitive brain start to reduce and shrink back. And our memories, our emotional memories, are actually very gradually through our REM sleep are transferred over from the primitive brain to the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, wow.
So you know that feeling that if somebody upset you in the day and you're kind of have a bit of an emotional reaction to that, wasn't a nice feeling, and you sleep on it, and the next day you don't feel quite so upset about it.
Yeah.
That's what your brain's doing. It's refiling that event. It reruns it during your REM sleep, so your dream sleep. It will rerun that event, and what's happening is it's refiling it over to the prefrontal cortex. That's the bit of the brain that goes, do you know what? It's not that big a deal. They were probably having a bad day. It's nothing that you did. Just forget it. So you then have control over that memory. It's not overwhelming anymore, like it was when it was still in the primitive brain.
Yeah. That's amazing. And obviously that's why people say sleep on it.
Yeah,
You'll
exactly.
feel better in the morning.
Things will look better in the morning.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
what the hypnosis part does. It gets you into that lovely, relaxed state where your brain waves are relaxed and slow, and it replicates REM. So when you're in hypnosis, you're processing the stress that has built up over however long.
When you are doing that process with a client, so you're in that sort of trance kind of state, are you asking specific kind of questions of them, or are you sort of giving them specific instructions depending on what they've come to you with? Or is it quite an organic, natural thing about being in that state that it just kind of happens? Like, how much do you have to lead that as a hypnotherapist?
We tend to, as solution-focused therapists, we tend to work with repetition. So when I work with a client, I will give them, we call them language patterns or scripts that we'll use with people. And I will use the same ones with them. So we work with repetition. So it's almost like being told a story with some visual imagery and positive suggestions over sort of 25 minutes, half an hour or so. I'll be talking to them and taking them on this little journey. It is just like being, we have progressive muscle relaxation and then visual imagery and lots of positive suggestions and, those direct suggestions that when you're in that subconscious state of mind, which is just relaxation, we all go into hypnosis certain times of our day when your mind just wanders a little bit, or you're absent-minded driving, or you're, watching a really good film that you're submerged in the storyline, or a book, or, that's just that natural state of relaxation. And when that's happening, the subconscious state of mind takes on board these positive suggestions. And the primitive brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And that's why sometimes our worries can give us those feelings of stress and panic, even if we're not in that situation at the time. So we could be sitting on our sofa at home and you think about something stressful that's
Mhm.
happened before, or you're worrying about something that's going to happen in the future, and you get all these, symptoms of anxiety in the body. We can use that to our advantage in hypnotherapy because we're working with positive suggestions, and the primitive brain is going to take them as real as well. So it not only takes our own negative thoughts on, it will take on those positive thoughts as well and start to feel a bit safer. So that physiological response that comes from the primitive brain starts to lessen over the weeks that I work with people.
And I guess every client is different, so there's probably no right way to answer this, but how long do you work with a client? I suppose it'll differ depending on how they cope with the hypnotherapy and what the trauma is, and lots of different things. So you could work with a client for like a really short amount of time, or months potentially, or
generally I will see people for 8 to 10 sessions, something like that. It always works quicker for anxiety, and clients who are low in mood or depressed, those are the clients that I tend to work with for a bit longer, because with depression, it's like a slowing down of the physiology. We always use the example of, because the primitive brain hasn't changed since caveman days, we always think of the example of, if we were in those times, primal people, when they couldn't go out and hunt and gather, when there was snow or ice or danger outside, and they couldn't go and, they couldn't feed themselves, they would just have to go dormant and, lie low, not interact and preserve energy. And that is the modern day symptoms of depression, where we go into that slow, everything's a real effort. Or for clients that are really suffering from depression, it can be a slightly longer process.
It's really interesting. Living in modern society now, when you have those kind of feelings, it's quite difficult to actually slow down like a primitive person might have just done. Just like you say, used the word dormant there.
Yeah.
In this sort of modern life, we can't just do that all the time, because life is so fast paced and hectic, and responsibilities that we have and stuff like that, which can make that an overwhelming kind of experience.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so simple. See, when you just explain it like that, it's so simple to kind of understand what it is that you're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that when I see people for that initial consultation and I explain what's happening in the brain, it can be really transformational for people, because it gives them hope. And it's something that we often, with mental health, feel like that's just me. I've got a tendency to be depressed, or I'm an anxious person. And yes, we can be more prone to anxiety or more prone to low mood, but it's always what's happened to us. And we don't have to analyze it over and over. We can process that stress and make a neurological shift in the brain so that people over time start to feel better and can start to live their lives again. And I think that understanding the brain is a really key element of what we do, because it gives people hope that things can change and they're not stuck like this forever.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. What are the biggest misconceptions about hypnotherapy? I don't know if you, in your sort of daily life, come across people who are maybe a bit doubtful about hypnotherapy and whether it's like a legitimate thing, or do you come across that kind of attitude towards hypnotherapy in your everyday life?
Yeah, I suppose I have done before. Often, well, always, usually the people that come to see me want to be there and have done a bit of research and feel like it's the therapy for them. But yeah, I think there are definitely misconceptions out there. I think that idea that it's mind control is maybe one of them, that you'll end up saying or doing something that the person is making you do, or it's not like that at all. It's just relaxation. Although I have been to see Derren Brown and Paula Kennedy. I think they're fascinating, but that's not anything like what I do. all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You have to voluntarily go into that state.
Oh yeah, for
And that
sure.
people can do to you. And I think maybe on the other end of the scale is that it's a quick fix and maybe like a magic wand that somebody will just hypnotize you and you'll be fixed after one session. Whereas it's a longer process that takes a bit of work on the part of the client as well to get to where they want to be. So yeah, like I say, I work with people over a series of sessions rather than just a one-off.
Just a one-off.
Apart
Yeah.
from smoking cessation, we do that in a one-off.
Ah, now that's interesting. So how can you do that in a one-off where other things will take multiple sessions? What is it about smoking cessation that can be done so quickly?
So it comes down to the primitive brain again, and that explanation in smoking cessation, we give people, again, a very detailed explanation of how the addiction of smoking is set up in the brain, basically, and how we can give that primitive brain an absolute no. It's not a magic wand, but it's explaining it in a way that is very clear and very effective.
That's fascinating. Just as a slight aside, and I know it's not the same thing, but when I was a student in Freshers Week, they had a hypnotist that came in. So I got up as a volunteer to be hypnotized, and it just nothing happened to me. And I think maybe because I was being a bit like, go on in, see what you can do. And I didn't buy into it perhaps enough. But there was people around me that were convinced there was elephants at the back of the hall and whatever. And I was just sat there and I was like, he basically just told me to get off the stage because it wasn't happening. But there is that sort of, I guess, that thing where hypnotherapy is like being hypnotized by Paul McKenna, and he'll make you eat onions like apples and all that nonsense. Do you know what I mean? Could you give us, obviously without breaking any confidentiality, could you give us some examples of success stories or testimonials that clients of yours have had?
Yeah, I mean, we work with measured outcomes in solution-focused hypnotherapy as well, which is a really fantastic way of tracking people's progress over the sessions as well. So I get my clients to score how they're feeling in certain areas, of life, like confidence, happiness, how positive their thoughts have been, these kind of questions. And each week we tend to see a positive increase. Life is life, and sometimes it's not completely linear. But generally, over the course of the block of therapy, it is quite incredible what they've scored on that initial consultation and where they get to by the end of the block of therapy. I do have a few testimonials on my website.
Give it a plug.
It's nicolawilsonhypnotherapy.com. And yeah, I've got a few testimonials on there and on my Facebook page as well. And I'm on Instagram as well. And you can see some of the quotes and things from my clients. But yeah, just that general increase in happiness, in confidence, in getting to where they want to be in life. It's very common for people to get new jobs or make changes while they're coming for hypnotherapy. I've got a testimonial, I think it's on social media, of a lady who I worked with who was having fertility issues, and I got a lovely message from her to tell me that she was expecting, and just, after having a block of hypnotherapy, that everything had changed so much for her in her life. So yeah, just generally what I tend to see is that decrease in anxiety and low mood, and that increase in all the good stuff, and moving forward in a really positive way.
I mean, that's amazing. You're doing fabulous work. And I would urge anybody out there listening to go and check out Nicola's website and socials and see the amazing stuff that she does. Now, we are rapidly running out of time, but I think that what would be great is if you would agree to maybe come back on in a few weeks and we can chat some more about some other stuff. If you'd be happy to come back on and talk to us, maybe when Lee's around as well, and you can, I'm sure he's got other stuff that he'd like to ask you as well.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fine. It'd be a pleasure.
Amazing. So, well, Nicola, thank you so much for talking about your solution-focused hypnotherapy. And we'll have you back on again soon, and we'll see you soon.
Lovely. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for asking me to come on.
No problem.
That was Nicola
Yes.
talking about hypnotherapy. Now, I have to say, she just sent it to me just prior to coming on, so I've only managed to listen to the first half of that. So I'm left with questions that she may well just cut me off, or we'll just edit it out if she answered it. But did she talk about like the actual process of what happens when you're hypnotized?
Yeah, so it's she did talk about how she would lead someone into that kind of state of trance or hypnosis. They have scripts.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly how she described it, but it's kind of like a story almost. So when they get into that state of relaxation, she's taking them on a journey which helps them get into that kind of trance-like state, which then and then the session continues from there.
Because I have to say, right, first of all, I found it fascinating. I thought it was really, really enjoyable. It got us back on track after us just talking waffly rubbish. So to actually have someone on who knew what they were talking about is always good. But no, I am going to go back and listen to the rest of it, because I thought, from what I heard, it was very, very informative and very, very interesting. I suppose my only, and it might tell me when I go back and listen to it, I still don't know, and I'll explain why. I'm still not sure what hypnosis is, because you've got stage hypnosis, the Paul McKennas of this world, and blah 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 blah. You've then got Darren Brown, who again does all this stuff with hypnosis, but then in his books kind of debunk hypnosis and say, well, it's not. So is it? So and I've had my own experience with hypnosis, obviously. Time for the jingle.
Lee Crompton's anecdote corner. Lee Crompton's anecdote corner.
So I was at a Paul McKenna show once, thinking it was, again, fairly skeptical about it all. And right at the beginning, he got you to clasp your hands together with your fingers intertwined, and he put on all the plinky plonky music and turn down the lights, and you were supposed to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and you could feel the glue oozing between your fingers, and and this went on and on and on, and I was sat next to my mum and dad, and I'm pushing and pushing and pushing, and you can feel the glue setting, and he said, and then he goes bing, turns the lights up and goes, right, if you can't pull your hands apart, come up on the stage. So I turned to my mum and dad, I went, I can't pull my hands apart. My dad was like, sharp, just pull your hands apart. And I'm like, no, I genuinely can't pull my hands apart. We said, we better go up on stage then. So I walked up, still holding my hands. And then when I got to the bottom of the steps to get onto the stage, I see, it must have been, I don't know whether there's noise or the lights or the other people, the distraction or whatever, I don't know. And there was someone who I used to go to school with who was sat, who I hadn't seen for years, who was sat on one of the chairs. And I kind of lost whether my mind was saying, oh, that's so-and-so. I won't mention it for legal reasons. And I felt my hands come apart. And so I'm now stood there like a prick on the stage, just literally holding my hands together, clasped like this. And then Paul McKenna comes around and he taps you on the shoulder, whether he thinks you're suggestible enough, in inverted commas, or are going to be any good for the show. Funnily enough, he taps me on the shoulder and says, fuck off back to your seat, because you're just holding your hands together, which at that point I was. However, I genuinely couldn't get my hands apart. Now, if you listen to Darren Brown's, I'm probably going off at a tangent because it's not the same as what Nicola's doing, but Darren Brown says a lot of it is hocus pocus. But then the girl who I saw was a girl, we've narrowed it down. The girl that I saw from school on the stage, I knew wasn't the stooge. And she got picked as one of the final 5 to go in the show and did all these things and what have you. So you think, yes, there's something in it. However, I have been for hypnotherapy things and not really, I've just been very relaxed, and maybe that's what it is. I need to play the anecdote jingle again, because I think it may have been episode 1, the very first episode we did in your kitchen, where, and I am going off, you'll be pleased to know, off at a tangent again, because it's not really mental health based, but it is kind of links into what we're talking about. Are you eating grapes?
I am.
Oh, okay. I'll keep talking then, so you can keep munching your grapes.
That's why I'm eating them, because you're talking.
Yeah, sorry. So episode 1, I said to you, or we were having a discussion, and we were going to talk about things that were either that would work, some things that won't work for. And I basically said there's some therapies that are rubbish. I know we said we were going to go into this open mind, but there's some that is just complete bobbins. I'm now going to tell you that bobbins one that I was referring to back in episode 1, whenever it was, early doors. So as a Christmas present, my sister-in-law used to get me sort of weird and wonderful, just different things, weird things to try out. So I got a tarot card reading, and one particular year I got a hypnotic life regression, I think it was called. Yeah, you're gonna visit your past lives, and I'm like, okay, am I really? So yeah, you're lying there and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. You're a bit like Paul McKenna, and you're going slipping into subconsciousness and walking down these steps. Can you visualize the steps, Lee? Yes, I can visualize the steps. And walking down deeper and deeper and deeper. And you eventually reach a door, and you open the door, and you see a big long corridor. Can you see the big long corridor, Lee? Yeah. And there's doors, just a bank of doors either side. And above every door is a number. Just keep walking along the corridor, and you can see the doors. And the numbers above the top of the doors relate to a year. And then, so can you see a door with a year? Yeah, okay, yeah. So what can you see? 1830. Okay. So open the door and walk through the door, Lee. And I'm relaxed, but I'm not regressing into my subconscious. I'm basically just lying there awake. And he then asked me, because I did think before I went in, how is this going to work? If he's hypnotizing me, is he going to tell me what he's seeing as what I was, I'm a centurion in the Roman army or whatever it is? Because surely that's going to have to come from me. And lo and behold, yes, it did. So I've walked through the 1830 door. What can you see? And I'm like, and actually regress back, because I'd done some research on, there's a link here, Edmund Crompton, who was a waterman. And I'm thinking he was late 17. So what can I see? So I kind of based it on him. And I'm making up this, what houses can now say, well, there's like a hut, and what's a walk in the hut? What can you see on that? Well, there's a fire with a kettle on it. And when I Googled it, kettles weren't invented for another about 100 years after whenever the date was that. So it was just, and it was honestly one of the most stressful things I've done in my life, because I was having to make up this narrative on the hoof of like what year, 1652. And I'm like, I was always rubbish at history. I have no idea what the landscape looked like in 1652, what people were eating, where they lived. And so I went through another couple of doors, and I'm just on my metal trying to think of these scenarios. And I came out of it, and we're walking back up the steps and blah, blah, blah. And he's made notes, and he gives me the notes that he's handed. He said, oh, that was amazing. That was really remarkable. He said, do you feel that you've, and I'm like, yeah. And I think I have mentioned this to you before. I left there. Well, first of all, I said, have you been doing this for long? No, he said, no, I was a British gas engineer 3 years ago. I'm all right. He said, just a recent thing that you do past life regressions. Does he know that he's taking money off people and it's all a load of gumph, and that they're making it up on the hoof? Or do people have the gumption to go, do you know what, mate? I'm just lying here with my eyes shut, telling you a story. I'm making up my head. I am not regressing my past lives. Or does he genuinely believe that, because everyone like me comes out of the trance in inverted commas and goes, oh, do you know what? That was really something.
Just to play devil's advocate, maybe it just didn't work for you.
Please, if you're listening, if you have ever tried, or if you haven't, Ian McNabb, as we know, tries everything that we suggest on the program. So Ian, there's your homework. Try some past life regression, and you tell me whether you were centurion in the Roman army, or whether you just lied there with your eyes shut and made up a story. But what I'm saying is there's a whole spectrum of hypnosis from Paul McKenna. You know, I've seen that when I was a kid, this hypnotist who hypnotized people to think that an onion was an apple, and they're just chomping on this onion like it's an apple. And you can't fake that, because you'd be going, Jesus Christ, this is disgusting. So there's a whole spectrum of, and I'm sure I've kind of gone off what Nicole's saying, but it's all in inverted commas hypnosis. But that's to me, seems like a huge spectrum of, because she's not saying she's putting people under, and getting them to dance around as a chicken.
She actually goes on, and this is what you haven't listened to yet. She makes a big distinction between what she does and like hypnosis.
Right.
Between she does mention Paul McKenna and Derren Brown and that kind of stuff, but it's quite a different.
You could have stopped me earlier then, couldn't you, Paul? Really, I've just ranted for about 15 minutes.
I know, but it was interesting to listen to.
Do I need to play the anecdote corner jingle again? That is the end of my anecdotes. For now.
For now. Who knows where the next 5 minutes will take us? Yeah. So
sorry, so what did you, having done the interview and known exactly what she said from start to finish, what was we should just maybe start it with this. What was your take on it?
So it sounds really interesting in that, and Nicola does go on to, she does point out the sort of the misconceptions about hypnotherapy and how some people think it's like mind control, or it is similar to that kind of stage hypnosis kind of thing where they're skeptical of it, or indeed worried about it in case, while they're in their trance, that she says, and any time you hear the word yellow, you'll pretend to be a banana. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever it is.
I mean, I know your method, but how do you pretend to be a banana?
I don't know. It was the first thing that came into mind.
Okay.
But that's not what she does, and it's about being in such a relaxed state that your brain processes the trauma and what you're going through in a different way, and it allows you to look on stuff with a more positive attitude and things like that. And it sounds great, and it sounds like something that that I would be willing to kind of try if I ever thought I needed to, a bit of help or whatever.
I think if Nicola's listened to this, we should go and try it.
Yeah, and actually, Nicola is going to come back on as a guest. She's going to be a returning guest because we didn't kind of get through everything we wanted to, and I thought that you'd maybe have some more questions and things as well. So we're going to get her back on.
Excellent. So hopefully I haven't put her off with all my ranting about Paul McKenna and regression into previous lives. And if she could do anything to maybe solution-focused hypnotherapy to maybe stop your hair growing so quickly. Can we try that?
Hey,
it's like a full-time job. It's like, I've seen you today. It's like, what? I don't know how you.
It's like painting the Forth Road Bridge. It's like
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as it's finished getting cut, it needs to be cut again.
Nicola, there you go. There is a challenge. We've laid down the gauntlet. Or if not that, maybe just some anxiety stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe me, because it gives me to see you with such a full head of hair when I'm as bald as a coot.
Yeah. Maybe you'd walk out of the session with just this massive mane of hair.
Well, even just addressing the anxiety that I feel with you. Yeah, I just brush it back out of your eyes, Paul. That's it. Brush it back. Inadequacies that I feel having to look at your massive bouffon every fortnight.
You love it.
I suppose it is helpful. So going back to Elvis.
Yeah.
Do you wear like a plastic Elvis quiff, or do you just fashion because your hair is, I'm looking at it now. I mean, there's a huge kind of, look at that.
Yeah.
Not that.
I wear a wig.
Why do you need to wear a wig? I mean, that's
because the wig makes me look more like the character in the book of the dad, of the Timothy Pope's dad.
Has he got a name? Was he just called Timothy Pope's dad?
Mr. Pope.
Okay. Right, so you don't dress up other than your spangly suit. or jacket, you're not like an Elvis impersonator.
No, it's because the pictures of the dad in the book, he's got like a big quiff and he wears like drain pipes and blue suede shoes. The illustration just makes him look like an Elvis fan.
Gotcha.
And that's just been worked into the show. So when he's singing a song about how Timothy's spied his dad through the telescope, he launches into a song about what a cool dad he is. And he's
hang on. I think I have to play the anecdote corner jingle again.
Lee Crompton's anecdote corner. Lee Crompton's anecdote corner.
My literary agent recently got married, had a hen do, and got married in Vegas. And she was saying that you can't any longer get married by an Elvis in Vegas.
What?
Now I'm gonna fact check this, but I don't know whether it's something to do with the Gracelands estate or whatever. But you now cannot impersonate Elvis if you want to marry people in Las Vegas, or presumably anywhere else.
People weren't taking the marriages seriously when they did it in Vegas because of that. They need to try and make it more official so people take it seriously.
So who do you think's knuckled down on that? The people, the Las Vegas authorities, or the Elvis, or just the Christian church, mate?
Maybe it's the Christian church, mate.
Yeah, I don't know how much power they've got to stop Elvis impersonators. I'm gonna go.
The power.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Well, I know you. If there's only one person who's got the power, it's Elvis's estate.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go on that. But anyway, there's my. I did say there wasn't going to be any more anecdotes, so I do apologise. This episode.
It's just been the Lee Crompton show, this one.
Yeah, I've been making up for lost time. I do apologise. Well, you do the interviews, you see, and then I come on and I feel left out and feel that I need to put my stamp on the episode. Did I tell you about the time I got stuck in a lift with Peter Kay? That's not a story, by the way. I've just made that up. Right. Have we got anything else? Because I probably need to go in a minute.
I'll just do my housekeeping and we can get out of here.
Yeah, I apologise. You literally have said next to nothing for the last 40 minutes.
It's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's time for Paul Beeson's housekeeping.
Paul Beeson's housekeeping. Oh, how very lovely.
How lovely. So if you want to hear more anecdotes from Lee Crompton, you can drop us a little email at sliceofmindcake@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Mindcake Podcast, and you can find us on Facebook if you just search for Mind Cake. Boom.
Wonderful. Well, we'll wrap it up there then. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, nice to see you again, buddy.
And you, mate. I've got to go now. I've got to get in my car to get down to Weston-super-Mare to see the Elvis.
All right, bud. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Let's start a podcast about our mental health for no good reason why. Let's call it Mind Cake.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Mind Cake. Mind Cake. With me, Isabel Compton and Erin Crompton. We're going to be reviewing Shark in the Park.
Because you were there on last week, seeing Paul Beeson.
With my mum, Izzy, and Ola. And Auntie Julie, I think. No, Auntie Julie wasn't there. And Auntie Julie wasn't there.
So what did you think of the show, girls?
I thought it was really good. And it was amazing.
It was amazing?
Yeah.
What was the best bit?
Timothy Pope.
Timothy Pope, was he the boy, is he?
Yeah, Timothy Pope, looking through his telescope, he looks to the sky and he looks to the ground. He looks all around and this is what he sees.
Right, okay. So
And then he sees, there's a shark in the park.
I think we've established that.
Can I please listen to it?
No, hang on a minute.
I will listen to
Right,
it.
so
Please.
you can listen to it in a minute. Listen to it in a minute. So are we giving Shark in the Park a thumbs down, a thumbs middle, not sure, or a thumbs up?
A thumbs up. A thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. So if Shark in the Park...
I mean a thumbs middle.
Oh, you changed... Why thumbs middle? You're just being mischievous.
Yeah, there's a shark in the park.
Okay, don't shout into the microphone, please.
Okay, shark in the park.
Right. Okay, well, I think that means...
I might listen to it now.
Right, okay. Let's just abandon that.